I have severe insomnia. I was diagnosed when I was still a junior in high school. My parents found me in the kitchen making pancakes at 3 a.m. I hadn't slept in 4 days. Ever since, whenever stress hits me, I have to take my pills to get some sleep. Of course, it is helpful sometimes to stay awake for longer. I can do more when I'm not sleeping. I already learned 2 languages that way, and countless assignments were done in the quiet hours after midnight. But the advantages only come for short. Staying awake for longer than 3 days only lowers my productivity. If you don't rest for too long, all you want to do is bang your head against a wall. Besides, even the most loving and compassionate person has their limits when tired. I'm already not very fond of people, to be honest. My mood is unbearable after the 4th day. Right now, I'm in college. I've decided to take a road trip through a certain highway with my friend, Sebastian, just for the thrill of it. We both know how to drive, so it wouldn't be a problem if the driver needed to rest. Our destination would be our natal city, to visit his parents for their anniversary. After 5 sons, I don't know if his mother sees me more as her daughter or as a possible daughter-in-law. But what really matters is that she makes the best apple pie in the world and is the nicest person to step on earth. We were pretty happy to come home, naturally. We left on Friday afternoon, prepared to drive through the night. I remember it was way past 11 o'clock when we decided to stop. That specific highway a lot of times is surrounded by miles and miles of desert, but rarely you see a restaurant or a city to stop and eat. So when we saw that small diner in the middle of nowhere, it was our call to stop. The plaque a few miles back indicated where we were, between 2 small cities on our map, in a big, straight line with no exits for at least a few towns before and after that lonely diner. Sebastian parked the car in the empty parking lot. That didn't strike us as strange, because that diner gas station was in the middle of fucking nowhere, and they sure as hell don't have that many visitors, especially when it's late and off-season. Rather, I'd find it weirder if it had lots of cars. It was an old diner, in your typical 50s style, with neon lights glowing faintly in the dark night. Inside, I could see the bright fluorescent lights shining upon the turquoise walls. There wasn't a single soul inside, although the neon plaque indicated it was open. As soon as we stepped in, we could feel something different. I never felt such an acute urge to leave. The place was calm and clean, but that peaceful piano version of Suspicious Minds only made my heart jump in pure dread. We sat on a table near the door in silence, waiting for someone. anyone to appear there. There was something about that place that made reality a little bit loose. I suppose that's what happens in isolated places, when there aren't people around to confirm what you just experienced. It was a wild and brand new feeling for me, and equally terrifying. But soon, a voice surprised us. "Hi, welcome to Papa's Diner. How may I help you?" It was an old lady, maybe in her 60s, smiling like a grandmother. Her teeth were perfectly straight, slightly yellow and completely fake. There was a motherly aura about her, but I could sense something else. Something ominous and very, very malicious. Can we get... What do you want, Cassie? Sebastian asked me. I want pancakes with eggs and sausages. Coffee for both of us? Yeah, so the same for me and 2 coffees, please. Alright, I'll be back in a minute, she said, going to the kitchen. The music still played, and I didn't know if I was shivering from fear or cold. It was damn cold there. The air conditioner was blasting. Soon enough, our food was there and we had our time eating under a 50s piano collection. The food was surprisingly good, actually, considering how far and isolated this place was. Why even bother make the food the best meal available if this is the only option in miles? I guess that lady just liked to cook for people. That was probably the only reason this diner was still open, because there wasn't a great flow of people going through this highway. Hell, we couldn't remember seeing a single car in at least 2 hours. This place sure wasn't making loads of money. I remember we discussed who should be paying. Even broke college students want to have some pride in paying their own bills every once in a while, you know? In the end, we agreed to split in half, while Grandma thought it was such a modern thing for couples to share the check. We didn't bother to correct her, and soon we left. The sounds of the desert were comforting like a hug. That place still bugged me for some reason. It was like it wasn't supposed to be there. You see, the more you think about it, the less sense everything makes. There was no house near, nor a city. So where did Grandma live? And why bother to be open at such an inconvenient time when it's off season and nobody's going through that road? I don't know. That whole thing felt sketchy. I was eager to leave, and since Sebastian was tired, I took the driver's role while he was in the front seat sleeping. Our drive started peacefully. For the next 2 hours, I drove in silence. The road was dark and empty, cutting through the desert sharply, but I wasn't tired. I hadn't slept the night before, but I was still in pretty good shape, actually. My activity peak is usually on my second night awake. It's when I do the most in less time, so you can imagine my surprise when I started to feel weird. I don't know how to actually explain what I was feeling back then. I remember it started by feeling my ears closing up, like when you're underwater, deafening the sounds around me. All of a sudden, the radio started playing a generic indie music that was lower than it had been. And not long after that, I felt something was with us in the car. We all have heard of that stupid urban legend about the man in the back seat. But can you imagine how terrifying it is to think that maybe this time this isn't just a tale? We locked the car at the diner, yet I couldn't shake the feeling there was a third person with us. I couldn't force myself to look back and end this Schrödinger dilemma for some godforsaken reason. And while I was battling those demons to keep on driving, Sebastian was sleeping like a baby. I thought that maybe I should focus more on the road and this whole situation would pass. After a few miles, I saw some really bright stars, and really big ones as well. But those stars started to move. I pulled the car right then. Sebastian ended up waking up, but that didn't worry me. I just told him, "Look out of your window and see if there's anything out of place." "What do you," he said, but I was dead serious, and he ended up not questioning my order. The fear in his eyes said it all. "Cassie, what the fuck? What's this?" I didn't know, really. Those lights were dancing in the sky, going up and down, left and right. There was about a dozen of them. They were bigger than stars, almost the same size as the moon, and I can't even begin to describe the horror I felt back then. It was beautiful, but in a frightening way, like an exotic or dangerous animal. During episodes of severe insomnia, it may happen that you see things that aren't really there, like a mind glitch. You put your keys on your bedside table, but the next morning they are next to the couch and you just didn't realize what you were seeing in detail. You take a vague shape and give it whatever form it's easier for your brain. I never happened to hallucinate, but everything has its first time. Was all of this really real? I thought it wasn't until Sebastian confirmed it. Two people don't hallucinate the same thing. It was real. Too real. I don't know how long we stayed there, mesmerized and horrified at the same time. Could be 10 minutes or 2 hours, I really can't tell. And I don't even know how we made it to the closest city in safety. All I know is that next morning, we tried to explain it in the most rational way possible. That adorable old lady drugged us and we tripped balls during that night. We called Sebastian's parents to say we were going to be late for a little bit, coming up with an excuse so we could make it back to that diner. Was it a bad idea? Obviously, but we did it anyway. We went back that same road, trying to find it. But we didn't. We went back and forth that patch, even going further until the last city we stopped before that diner. But we couldn't find anything. And when we asked locals about it, we just received confused looks. There was no diner on that part of the highway. A few questions remain, and I'm afraid I can't answer them. Things simply stopped making sense at some point. What were those orbs we saw? Who was that old lady who served us? And if there wasn't a diner, then where did we eat that night?